Joining me now is Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Jack Dale. Welcome.
Thank you.
Well, we have an exciting thing we're going to talk about today, and I think we're going to have more of a conversation today about our new Trust and Confidence survey that we rolled out.
Well, for the viewing audience, I told you just before we started this that I'm going to actually interview you. So let me do that because you're actually the person behind the creation of this. Why did we even create this for the school system?
Well, it was actually a conversation that came out of a school board meeting, and we were looking at what was to be expected from our community relations efforts under the monitoring report. And we had several meetings, and I think the board was really struggling with what community relations should be all about. And finally, in one of the conversations, they hit the nail on the head, and they said, you know, you should be really focused on building the trust and confidence of our community, of our parents, and of our employees. And so I think that resonated with everybody. And then we said, well, okay, let's move forward. It's the first ever trust and confidence assessment that we've done, that any district has done as far as I know. And we're pretty excited with the results.
Yeah, and you started that actually probably 6-8 months ago with the monitoring report, and then evolved and worked with an outside firm, as I understand it, well, actually I know that, it's not I understand, that to develop the question so you would not have any kind of internal bias on that. But then you elected to survey parents, which is an easy captive audience because we have parents and we can access that. But then how did you get at the community's perspective?
Well, that was kind of difficult because we don't really have a list anywhere that resides that touches all Fairfax County taxpayers. And we wanted to touch those 75% of people who don't have children in schools. And so the best list that we could come up with was those who use the libraries, so the library patron list. And we surveyed 150,000 of those library patrons. Via email, and turned out with about a 4% response rate, which is not a great response rate, but because we surveyed so many, we have some confidence in the numbers that came back, which was about 6,500.
So we got an equal number of parents surveyed back, about 6,700, something like that. Now, let's take a look at the results of those two groups. Overall, how would you craft the parents' response on knowing about Fairfax County Public Schools, what we're doing with our kids, and their trust and confidence in the Fairfax County Public Schools?
Well, overall, I think we saw that parents are definitely, they feel very good about FCPS. They consider us a very trustworthy public institution. They feel very good about how we appreciate the diversity in our schools. They think teachers are very effective in instructing students. And so, and with the non-parent taxpayers, we saw that they didn't have a whole lot of information to make most of those assessments.
Yeah, so what was the takeaway from the non-parent group of people?
I think 81% of our parents felt that we were trustworthy, and about 65% of non-parents felt. So we had you can see a break right there. But more often than not, there was a considerable lack of information from our non-parent taxpayers, which is fair because if you're not directly connected to our schools and by having children in them or working in them, then you're going to have less information to make that assessment.
Well, speaking of information, differentiate. Our parents tended to rely on what and whom for their information.
Right. One of the key questions we asked is, what sources of information do you trust about FCPS? Okay. And parents overwhelmingly trusted FCPS, our website, keep in touch messages, that
all
sort of thing.
All the information that we pump out.
Friends and neighbors, and also employees, I believe. I'm trying to call that up. Non-parents, of course, believe the media, and primarily the Washington Post, friends and neighbors as well, and also FCPS sources. So,
but the FCPS sources were like third or fourth on the list as opposed to number one on the list for the parents, which is kind of interesting because it's probably not surprising to see the non-parents, like you say, don't have daily access to our information because we're not set up to pump out information, in mass emails to non-parents. We do that to parents with Keep in Touch, et cetera.
Right. So the lesson, really, the takeaway, we have some opportunities to bring our non-parent taxpayers up to speed with what we're doing. So we already have an initiative in place, and that is placing some information, regular information, a whole page, every month in the Connections newspapers that reach 90,000 households across Fairfax County. So we hope that's going to have an impact.
So that'll be a method we can get at the non-parents quickly, or hopefully, but at least with some information on a monthly basis.
Right.
And our parents, we can continue to use our normal outreach. I also wondered, and we can explore this another time, whether we have an issue of trusting a system versus my individual school.
Right.
Now, parents, you can see that differentiation because they're going to look at their child's school. but non-parents probably don't affiliate with the school, so it's really more the system that we're looking at.
Yeah, and maybe part of that initiative might be getting more non-parents in schools through volunteers, through mentoring, those kind of opportunities to really connect them.
Yeah. So we also did a little follow-up with the with focus group discussions to try and get at peeling the onion back a little bit more for meaning. But as I understand, we had a very small turnout, so you're a little leery about putting too much into that till we get a larger response.
Yeah. And with focus groups, you get more qualitative data. You get sort of themes and threads, some interesting insights. One of the key questions we asked was, what makes an institution trustworthy? Wanted to see how they defined it. And, transparency, a lot of information, that sort of thing. So I think we're kind of well aligned. We'll be looking at doing the survey again either next year or the following year.
Okay.
I'll be presenting it to the board in a couple of weeks. So
we'll decide how frequent we do it after that.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for letting me take over the interview.
Well, thank you. It was fun.